I met a Sex Pistol. Ahoy everybody, and welcome to this Martin Meets video. On Saturday the 20th of May I went to an in-store signing at A Slice of Vinyl, my local record shop, and in quite a coup for a small shop like them, they managed to get Glen Matlock, formerly of the Sex Pistols, many other bands, and currently a touring member of Blondie, to come in to do an in-store performance, Q&A and signing in support of his new album, Consequences Coming. There were 50 slots available, because that's sort of the capacity of the shop, they decided. This is the first one they've done of this sort of scale. They've had in-store signings before by Phil, can't remember his surname, from Uriah Heep, because his son is actually a customer, so they have a relationship with him. So he did a signing at the old store, and he's done one at the new store as well. Also, a band featuring a couple of members of Thunder, I think, did an in-store signing, I seem to recall, at the old store. This is the first one I've attended there, and by far the biggest one to date. So when it was announced, I thought, wow, that's, a great thing for them. If I can go, I will. Checked my rota at work. Yes, I was due to work early that day, so I could make it. So I booked my ticket, and was glad I did. So you could either, obviously everything had to be pre-booked because it was limited numbers, and you did so by ordering the album on either vinyl or CD on the Slice of Vinyl website. So I went for the album, and couple of days before the event they sent out an email explaining how things would work and also asking for any questions for Glen. I didn't really have anything I wanted to ask, so I did not contribute a question. But I went to a Slice of Vinyl the day before just to pick up some records anyway, so we had a chat about the event and what the plans were, and it all sounded promising, and it pretty much went to plan. So the shop shut an hour early on that Saturday. Normally they shut at 5, they shut at 4 so they could get ready. I rocked up. I left home about 4:30, so I was there sort of 22, quarter to 5. And there was a queue of about 15 people probably in front of me, maybe a bit more than that, but not many. I was certainly nearer the front than I was for Record Store Day, let me put it that way. As we were waiting outside, Emma came along with Dominic, and they had a big box full of the records and CDs and a list of everybody who'd signed up and checking us off and giving us what we'd ordered. So they passed me my copy of the album, and then we were just waiting, and it soon became apparent that Glen actually wasn't there yet, and then it became even more apparent when at 5 to 5 he pulled up in his Tesla and parked in the bay opposite the shop with, I'm presuming, his wife, a lady of a similar age to him, and they grabbed his guitar out of the back of out of the car and headed into the shop. We heard a brief sound check, and then 5:10-ish, I think it probably was, we were let into the store, told to fill out to the sides, fill up as much as possible so they could get everybody in. I could have walked straight up to the front, but I wasn't overly concerned with that. So I was about 3 or 4 people back, stood against the side. It meant I could put my record down on the record racks, and have a bit of a lean. And it was perfectly, I could see perfectly. It was fine. It's such a small place, but there's no way you couldn't see perfectly. But I was happy to stand there. Then once everybody was in, Kieran announced Glen. Glen came out, thanked us for coming, and launched into a couple of solo numbers. So it was just him and acoustic guitar. Unfortunately, he did have issues with his guitar. So let me show you on this one, where the jack goes in on it is there. It was a Gibson, but I didn't see what actual one it was. But then the strap went sort of round there, so you had the jack going into the same socket pretty much as the guitar strap. So when he was being overly active, it was knocking the jack out, so he kept losing sound. Which was frustrating him a bit. So after a couple of numbers, he did one from his previous solo album, and then everything else he performed was from the current album. So after a couple of numbers, 2 or 3, I think it was 3, I think he did initially, he called Kieran up to ask him some questions. So Kieran went through some questions, and he gave some very involved and enlightening answers to the ones that needed involved and enlightening answers, and some very entertaining answers to those that needed to be entertaining, if you see what I mean. But very enjoyable. And then he thought he'd try another number, which he did, but he was still having the same problems. So a guy who was helping with the sound, I've seen him before, can't remember when, but I think he's connected with Key West Studios, which is a venue nearby, and which Kieran supports and is involved with. He went and he knelt next to Glen and just held the jack into the guitar while he performed Head on a Stick. Yeah, Head on a Stick, which was the first single from the album. But after that, Glen had, he was sort of, as I say, a bit annoyed with his guitar having the issues. So he answered a couple more questions and then called it a day. So then we piled out and waited whilst they just set up a table for him to sign, and they just let us in one by one. The signing table was right by the door. Whilst we were waiting, any of us who wanted photos, Kieran took our phone from us, took an obligatory selfie on each one, which, this is Kieran. And then he passed it to Glen's wife, I'm presuming, who took photos whilst the albums were being signed, and then a post photo or photos with Glen afterwards. I didn't, I thanked him for coming, said I very much enjoyed it. He thanked me for coming. That was sort of the extent of the conversation. He didn't seem overly chatty with anyone, but I had nothing particular I wanted to say to him anyway. I got some nice pens for him to sign in, so it's signed nicely in gold, which I'll show you in a minute. Then we posted a photo. My one gripe, and it's with myself, is that as I was turning the album around so it showed him a photo, I put my hands in the wrong place and I have actually smudged the autograph. It's not bad, and I don't mind. It sort of makes it a bit more special to me, it's not like it's something I want to sell. But I'll show you that in a minute. Well, now, basically. So this is the album. I haven't listened to it yet, but I enjoyed the tracks that he played live. Clem Burke's on it. What's his name? Elslick's on it, and various other people. Anybody whose name instantly springs to mind. Oh, Norman Watt-Roy is on it, and various other people. This is just a black vinyl copy. There is an orange vinyl copy. Glen actually had some in his boot, which he then signed for Kieran to sell online after the event, which looked very nice, but it was only black available at the actual signing. But yeah, so you can see there is it. It's not too bad. Smudge on the M of Martin, and that smudge there on his G. I think that was it, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, and on the top of the L. But yeah, only minor, and it hasn't really spoilt it. But nicely signed. Yeah, and these are the photos of him signing it, and then me and him together. So that's it. Nice short one. Glad I attended. A nice little mini gig, a nice Q&A, and a copy of an album for 25 quid or whatever it was. Certainly not mega money. And yeah, brilliantly organised. thumbs up to the Slice of Vinyl team, which I've already praised them online anyway. Here's hoping that this sort of opens the floodgates and more acts turn up and do signings, you know, more bigger names. Yeah, could be good. But yeah, that's it. Nice to have a Martin Meets. Been a long time since the last one. Thank you for watching, everyone. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye.